Hey everyone, ever feel like you're hustling toward a goal, but just not seeing those results?
Yeah.
Like you're kind of stuck in this perpetual, almost there zone.
Oh, yeah.
We're tackling that very feeling today as we deep dive into James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
And it's not just another self-help book.
Yeah.
It's like a framework for understanding why habits, they stick,
Yeah.
or they just stubbornly refuse to.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Clear doesn't just kind of throw motivational quotes at you, you
Yeah.
know? He really digs into the psychology and even like the neuroscience behind like lasting change.
Right, right.
Mm.
Okay, so let's unpack one of his big ideas, and that's the plateau of latent potential.
Okay.
It's like when you're heating an ice cube,
Uh-huh.
you blast it with heat, but it seems like nothing's happening
Right.
until, bam, it hits that melting point.
Right, and suddenly you got a puddle.
Right.
Habits are really similar, actually. We often give up on new routines right before the magic happens. Think about learning a new language or an instrument. The early days can feel like such a slog, but those are the very moments when you're like building those neural pathways, the foundation for fluency. It's about trusting the process, even when you don't like see immediate results.
Oh, absolutely. And how do we push through that plateau? How do we know we're not just spinning our wheels?
Well, that's where Clear's emphasis on identity comes in.
Yeah.
He argues that true change isn't about willpower or checklists. It's about shifting your self-image.
Okay.
So instead of saying, I want to write a book, you start identifying as a writer.
So it's less about the goal itself and more about who you're becoming along the way.
Exactly.
So instead of, I want to run a marathon, it's, I'm becoming a runner.
Exactly. Each time you lace up your shoes and you hit the pavement, you're not just like racking up miles, right? You're casting a vote for your runner identity.
I love it. And Clear breaks down this process of habit formation into 4 stages, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like a blueprint for how actions become ingrained.
Precisely. He calls it the 4 stages of habit formation: cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay, let's break it down for our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
First up, the cue.
Okay.
What triggers that initial urge to act?
Well, cues can be really anything that your brain has learned to associate with a potential reward. Like the sight of your phone lighting up, signaling a potential message, or even just the smell of freshly brewed coffee in the morning. Our brains are constantly scanning our environment for these cues, and they're incredibly powerful.
If our environment is always like whispering to us, do this, do that,
Yeah.
based on our past experiences.
Exactly. And once that cue registers, then it triggers the second stage, craving.
Okay.
And this is like the motivational force behind every habit.
So using the phone example, the cue is seeing the notification, and the craving might be that like hit of dopamine you get from checking your messages.
That's a great example.
That feeling of connection or novelty.
Exactly. That craving then drives the third stage, the response, which is the actual habit itself, scrolling through social media, going for a run, whatever it may be.
Right, right. But it's not over yet, right?
Yeah.
There's still the reward stage,
Right.
which is what ultimately seals the deal.
Precisely. The reward is what reinforces the habit loop. So if the reward is satisfying that feeling of accomplishment after a workout, the taste of a delicious meal, your brain files it away as like worth repeating.
Right. It's like our brains are wired for efficiency. They're always looking for shortcuts, right?
Yes.
For ways to conserve energy, and habits are the ultimate shortcut.
That's exactly right. But what's really interesting is that Clear says if a behavior is insufficient in any of these 4 stages, it won't become a habit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It's like a chain.
Yeah.
Break one link and the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling to build a new habit, it's worth examining each of these stages. Where's the breakdown happening? Is the cue strong enough? Is the reward satisfying?
It's about like becoming a detective of your own behavior, understanding the why behind your actions, and using that knowledge to make lasting change. And speaking of making change easier, Clear talks a lot about the power of environment design.
Which makes me think about my own workspace.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got tempting snacks in plain sight,
Yeah.
let's just say my productivity takes a nosedive.
Right.
Claire calls this environment design.
Yeah.
This idea that we're not just fighting our own willpower.
Right.
We're in a constant tug of war with our surroundings.
It's so true.
Sure.
It's like trying to eat healthy in a candy store.
Right.
You might resist for a while, but eventually those surroundings will wear you down.
Yeah.
Clear argues that we should use this to our advantage, though.
Okay.
Design an environment that supports your goals, not sabotages them.
So put the potato chips in the back of the pantry.
Yeah.
not out on the counter. Make those healthy choices the easy choices.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
And on the flip side, make those cues for good habits super obvious.
Right.
Want to read more?
Yeah.
Put a book on your pillow, you literally can't miss it.
Right. You're setting yourself up for success.
Exactly.
It's about making those desired actions the path of least resistance.
Yes.
Speaking of, let's talk about one of my favorite takeaways from the book, The 2-Minute Rule.
Okay.
It's so simple, yet so brilliant.
It's deceptively simple, isn't it?
It is.
Clear says that starting a new habit shouldn't feel like climbing Mount Everest.
Right.
Make it ridiculously easy.
Yeah.
So easy that it's almost impossible to say no.
So instead of saying, I'm going to write for an hour, it's I'm going to sit down and write one sentence.
Exactly.
There you go.
Or instead of a 30-minute workout, you just commit to putting on your workout clothes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because once you've taken that first step,
Yeah.
often the momentum carries you forward.
Right.
It's like that saying, well, begun is half done.
And to keep that momentum going, Clear is a big fan of habit tracking.
Oh,
It's about making those small wins visible, giving yourself credit for showing up consistently.
I love a good habit tracker.
Yeah.
But Clear talks about something called the Goldilocks rule when it comes to tracking.
Mhm.
What's that all about?
Think of it like this.
Okay.
If a habit is too easy, it won't hold our interest.
Right.
We get bored.
Right.
But if it's too hard, we get discouraged and quit.
Right.
The Goldilocks rule is about finding that sweet spot, the just right level of challenge.
So you want a challenge, but not one that makes you want to throw in the towel.
Right.
It reminds me of when I first started running.
Uh-huh.
I set this crazy goal of running 5 miles,
Yeah.
and I was burnt out after a week.
Right. It's like trying to go from 0 to 60 in a matter of days.
Right.
It's not sustainable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A more Goldilocks approach would have been to gradually increase my mileage each week.
Right.
Finding that sweet spot between pushing myself and setting realistic expectations.
And that sense of progress, those small wins we track, they're like fuel for our motivation.
Right.
But sometimes we need an extra boost, which is where accountability comes in.
Claire talks about how having an accountability partner can be a game changer.
Oh, for sure.
It's like having a workout buddy.
Yes.
Someone to keep you motivated and on track.
It's about having someone in your corner, someone to share the journey with, celebrate the victories, and offer support when you stumble.
But Claire takes it a step further, right?
He does.
He talks about creating a habit contract.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty official.
It can be. It's basically a formal agreement,
Okay.
either written or verbal,
Okay.
where you outline your habit goal and the consequences for not following through,
Right.
and you share it with your accountability partner to make it real.
But it's about upping the stakes, adding a layer of external motivation.
Exactly. And
Mm.
you can get creative with the consequences.
Oh.
I know someone who had to donate to a charity they disagreed with if they didn't hit their weekly writing goal. Talk about motivation.
Ouch. That's dedication. But it's about finding what works for you,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's a financial penalty, a silly consequence,
Hmm.
or just the knowledge that you'll be letting someone down, that external accountability can make a huge difference.
It's about leveraging our natural desire to follow through on our commitments, especially when others are involved.
It's like that social pressure we all feel, but in a good way.
Exactly.
But Claire also talks about how our personalities play a role in habit formation.
Yeah.
Like maybe some of us are just wired to be more consistent than others.
Our genes definitely influence our predispositions.
Right.
Whether we're more introverted or extroverted, risk-averse or adventurous.
Right.
And those tendencies can make certain habits easier or harder to adopt.
So self-awareness is key.
Yes.
If you're someone who thrives on routine, you might find it easier to stick to a strict schedule.
Yeah.
But if you're more spontaneous, you might need to build in more flexibility.
It's about playing to your strengths and finding strategies that work for your unique personality. Clear calls this the explore-exploit trade-off.
Okay.
In the beginning, it's about exploring different habits, seeing what sticks.
Okay.
But once you find a winner, something that clicks,
Right.
you double down and exploit it.
Okay.
Make it a core part of your routine.
It's like finding your groove, that sweet spot where effort feels effortless because it's aligned with who you are.
Yeah.
But even when we find those right habits,
Yeah.
there will be days when motivation dips, right?
Sure.
Those days when we just don't feel like it.
Yes.
How do we stay consistent even when we're not feeling the fire?
That's where it becomes less about feeling motivated and more about remembering who you're becoming.
Okay.
Clear makes a distinction between amateurs and professionals.
Okay.
Amateurs let their feelings dictate their actions.
Right.
Professionals show up consistently regardless of how they feel.
So it's about playing the long game, showing up, even when you don't see immediate results, trusting that those small actions are adding up to something meaningful.
Ex-
But that doesn't mean we can't make the process more enjoyable.
Right.
Of course not.
Like, where's the fun in that?
Exactly. Absolutely. Clear talks about the importance of making our habits satisfying.
Right.
It goes back to that reward stage of the habit loop.
Right.
We're more likely to repeat a behavior if it feels good,
Right.
if it's something we genuinely look forward to.
So find those little rewards that make the process enjoyable.
Yeah.
Maybe it's listening to your favorite podcast while you're on a walk or treating yourself to a healthy smoothie after a workout.
Exactly.
Fun.
It's about finding those little things that make you think, hey, I want to do that again.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, it's also about being willing to reassess and adjust, right?
Yes.
Just because a habit worked for you in the past doesn't mean it will always work.
Right.
We change, our lives change, and our habits need to evolve with us.
Absolutely. Clear suggests doing a weekly review of your habits.
Okay.
What's working, what's not, and what you can tweak or improve.
It's like being a scientist of your own habits, you know?
Experimenting, gathering data, making adjustments along the way.
And not being afraid to scrap what's not working.
Right.
You know, we can get so attached to a routine even when it's no longer serving us.
It's like that saying, if you're always doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Right.
Sometimes a fresh approach is exactly what we need to, like, break through a plateau or just shake things up, you know?
Exactly. And that's what's so empowering about atomic habits.
Right.
It's not about rigid rules. It's about understanding the underlying principles
Right.
and then adapting them to your life, your goals, your personality.
It's a framework for change.
Yes.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
And it's a reminder that even small changes,
Right.
those atomic habits can have a ripple effect on every aspect of our lives.
It's easy to get caught up in those, like, big, audacious goals.
Yeah.
But often it's the small, consistent actions
Yeah.
that make the biggest difference in the long run.
It's about trusting the process, showing up day after day, even when you don't feel like it, knowing that those tiny steps are moving you closer to your goals.
It's about believing in the power of those 1% improvements, those incremental changes
Yeah.
that over time can lead to extraordinary results.
And it's about remembering that building better habits isn't just about achieving external success.
Right.
It's about becoming the best version of ourselves.
It's about aligning our daily actions with our values, our aspirations, our vision for the life we want to live.
Absolutely.
Well said.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into atomic habits,
Yeah.
what's one small habit, one tiny change that you can commit to today?
Hmm.
Something that will move you closer to that best version of yourself.
Because even small habits compounded over time can lead to extraordinary results.